One day, you're walking along the beach, feeling the sand between your toes, listening to the waves crash against the rocks, when suddenly, you see something that doesn't belong there. It's common for objects to wash up on beaches, but some things are so bizarre, you'd have to see it to believe it. Let's take a look at the weirdest things that have washed up on the shore. A few years ago, something washed up on the shores of Lake Coeur d'Alene in Idaho. It was a large metal die. Now, you may think that someone somewhere was playing a game of giant Yahtzee, but the actual story is far less interesting. A man by the name of Chris Gridley used a machine and some white vinyl stickers to make it look like a die. The massive metal container actually washed up near his in-laws' property in 2008. His mother-in-law referred to it as an eyesore, so Chris figured he'd do something about it. He owns a sign shop, so he had all the tools to transform this boring old container into something fascinating. This time-lapse footage was captured by Chris's neighbor and shows the gigantic die just casually drifting away. Speaking of gigantic, take a look at this humongous tree that washed ashore in Washington. Okay, wait, can you say that 3 times fast? Washed ashore in Washington. Washed ashore in Washington. Okay. As I was saying before I got distracted, this colossal piece of driftwood washed up in a small community called La Push, located on Washington's northwest coast. Although this may seem strange, residents in the area are used to seeing large trees, but this one was in a category all on its own. Park employee Barb Mance said, "It's not uncommon to find one as tall as I am, but that's pretty big." In fact, it is pretty easy to find trees in the nearby forest that measure 5 to 10 feet in diameter and can grow up to 200 feet tall. According to Barb, they sometimes get huge winter storms that cause the rivers that flow through the forest to flood. The force of the water and the wind can cause trees on the edge to topple in. That might have been how this massive tree ended up on the shores of La Push, but this has not been confirmed. In order to truly get an idea of how big the tree is, take a look at this photo. The girl standing in front of the tree is Amanda Lockman, and she is 6 feet tall. Need I say more? Somewhere on a beach in the northern region of Wales, there's a large World War II fighter plane sitting right by the shore. Yeah, the Lockheed P-38 Lightning fighter aircraft was being used for a training exercise when it crash-landed. This all happened in September of 1942, when Second Lieutenant Robert Elliott was using the plane for a practice mission. Less than an hour into his journey, the plane's left engine lost power and he decided to try and land it. The aircraft went down and landed in 2 feet of water. Although Robert managed to make it out scratch-free, the plane wasn't so lucky. The impact of the crash landing, combined with the salt water, had caused extensive damage. The aircraft remained in the water and would end up being covered by sand. However, as the sand channels shifted over time, the plane would be revealed to those who happened to be on the beach. This happened once in 2007 and again in 2014. The exact location of the fighter aircraft has been kept secret to ensure that the wreck is preserved. Over 3 decades ago, a container of plastic toys spilled and ended up scattered throughout the Pacific Ocean. Now, please get your minds out of the gutter. When I say plastic toys, I'm referring to rubber ducks. The merchant ship known as the Evergreen Ever Laurel was carrying a shipment of bath toys across the Pacific Ocean when a storm hit and caused the container to spill. Since then, the rubber ducks have traveled 17,000 miles, floating over the site where the Titanic sank after hitting an iceberg, landing in Hawaii, and even spending years frozen in an Arctic ice pack. In 2003 and 2007, they even arrived on the shores of the UK, as well as South Africa and Australia. Those who are devoted to following the movement of the rubber ducks refer to them as friendly floaties. They have also captured the interest of many people, so much so that they've become collector's items. Despite the intrigue surrounding this matter, the case of the rubber ducks shows how easy it is for marine pollution to also spread around the world and kill our sea life. In fact, in the year 2021, about 1,000 containers fell overboard, several of which caused damage to marine life. Even though the 28,000 rubber ducks spilled by accident, they ended up being useful to oceanographers and their research. To this day, they are still washing up on beaches around the globe. Can you believe that? In 2012, Hurricane Sandy took the Atlantic by storm. It was an extremely destructive and strong hurricane that left several places severely damaged. One such place was the state of New Jersey. On October 29, 2012, Hurricane Sandy made landfall in New Jersey and was accompanied by heavy rains, 80 miles per hour sustained winds, and a record-breaking storm surge that coincided with a high tide and a full moon. Streets were flooded, houses were swept off their foundations, and trees and power lines toppled to the ground. But amidst all this destruction, something beautiful managed to survive: a stack of letters. The stack contained 57 letters all tied together with a pink ribbon. A woman named Kathleen Mullen was walking along the Henry Hudson Trail when she stumbled upon them. She took one look at the pink ribbon and immediately knew that these were love letters. But where did they come from? Kathleen took them home, carefully dried them under her fireplace, and began to read. The letters were written by Dorothy Fallon of Rumson, New Jersey, and Lynn Farnham of Vermont between 1942 and 1947. One letter read, "I love you very much. Yours always, Dottie." Kathleen was determined to reunite the letters with their owners. She posted about the letters on Facebook, Craigslist, and eventually did a search on the website findagrave.com. It was then that she found out about someone named Lynn Farnham who died in 1992 and was buried in New Jersey. Although Lynn had passed away, Kathleen didn't give up hope. Through the website, she connected with the couple's niece, Shelley Farnham Hilber. Shelley was thrilled to hear about the discovery and referred to it as a genealogical gold mine. Shelley said that her uncle Lynn served in World War II and was at Pearl Harbor. He and Dorothy had 2 children. The son has unfortunately died, and the family has lost touch with the daughter. However, Dorothy is 91 years old and lives in a nursing home in New Jersey. Considering all the devastation of the hurricane, the letters were like a beacon of light for the family, and they were very excited to be reunited with them. In 2007, a man was found washed up on the Zandvoort beach in the Netherlands. This mysterious man perplexed those who visited the beach and saw him laying there. However, this was only the beginning of this strange story. 4 years later, this same man would appear on the shores of Siesta Beach in Florida. And then, in 2014, he washed ashore in Yugihama Beach in Japan. He has also been found floating near the shores of beaches in California and England. I know this all sounds ridiculous, but let me explain. This wasn't just any man. It was a giant Lego man. And if this wasn't weird enough, the 8-foot-tall yellow Lego figure was wearing a shirt that said, "No real than you are." Talk about cryptic. People would come to the beaches and take pictures with it, kids would play with it, but no one really understood how it got there, what the message meant, or who created it. But upon closer inspection, the mystery would finally be solved. The back of the Lego Man's shirt is signed with the name Ego Leonard, or L, Ego. Get it? It turns out that the giant Lego figure's name is Ego Leonard, and he was created by Dutch artist Leon Kier. Although Ego Leonard is clearly a large Lego figure, Lego executives want no part of him. A spokeswoman for Legoland said Ego Leonard is a fake and is not endorsed by Legoland or its parent company, Merlin Entertainments Group. But on the bright side, Ego has his own Twitter page where he talks about all his travels, so he seems to be doing just fine. On more than one occasion, we've heard people say Florida is not a real place, and with good reason. Florida has been described as the state where all the madness happens, and this incident definitely makes it onto the list as one of the most bizarre Floridian incidents. In 2012, a mysterious giant eyeball was found washed up on a Florida beach. People wondered where it came from and started formulating all sorts of theories. Maybe it belonged to a giant squid, or a whale, or an undiscovered sea cyclops, or maybe not. According to researchers, the massive eyeball most likely came from a swordfish. The eyeball is the size of a grapefruit or a softball, so it definitely came from a large-sized fish. Swordfish can reach up to 1,100 pounds and are common in South Florida, so there's a high likelihood that the eyeball could have come from this animal. Based on the straight line cuts visible around the eye, researchers believe that a fisherman probably caught the fish at sea, cut the eyeball out while dressing it, and then threw it back into the ocean. However, this is not conclusive, and DNA testing still needs to be done to confirm that the eye came from a swordfish. For all we know, it might belong to Plankton from SpongeBob SquarePants. If you've ever watched the Dragon Tales cartoon, you might be familiar with Zack and Wheezy, the two-headed dragon. Well, something very similar turned up on a beach in Turkey, except it was a dolphin. Now, it's pretty common for dead marine life to wash up on the shores every now and then, but this creature was not like anything that had ever washed up on the beach before. It was a two-headed dolphin calf that was believed to be around 1 year old. Early reports stated that the eyes were not fully opened on one of the heads, and neither was one of the blowholes. The baby dolphin had a rare condition known as polycephaly, which is just a fancy way of saying the animal has two heads. This condition is a severe example of conjoined twins, which happens when a fertilized egg does not split completely. The result is a shared body with separate heads. Polycephaly has been observed in numerous animals, such as snakes, sheep, dogs, fish, and people. Now you know us. This video would not be complete without mentioning body parts. In 2018, Russian fishermen found a sack in the far eastern stretches of icy Siberia near the Chinese border. When they opened up the mysterious bag, they found 54 severed hands. After conducting fingerprint checks, the local police discovered that the frozen hands belonged to 27 people. But where did they come from? Of course, people had all sorts of theories. Some thought it was the result of a bizarre punishment ritual for persons who were caught stealing. Others thought it might have been the work of a vicious maniac who was going around and cutting off people's hands before murdering them. However, a team of Russian investigators seemed to have solved this strange riddle. It appears that the hands were from a forensic laboratory or a hospital and were improperly discarded. Local media also reported that the sack was found alongside medical bandages and surgical shoe covers, so it is unlikely that the hands were severed for any criminal reason, but authorities are still looking into it. Interestingly, in Russia, the hands of unidentified corpses are sometimes severed in order to retain fingerprints for identification after the burial. However, this is the part that is making the investigating team scratch their heads. Why would both hands of the corpses be cut off when only one is needed for identification? And why would you even sever hands when you could take fingerprints and store them in a database? If you thought hands were the only body parts that have washed up on beaches, think again. Since 2007, nearly 24 human feet have been found on the coasts of the Salish Sea, which extends across the US-Canadian border. However, there is something quite interesting about these feet. They're all wearing sneakers. I mean, just imagine you're at the beach and you decided to go for a swim. You see a sneaker floating nearby, but when you take a closer look, you realize there's a foot inside. This is exactly what happened to a group of beachgoers on New Year's Day in 2019. When the news broke, people started speculating that there may be a killer on the loose who was dismembering their victims' bodies. However, in most of the cases, authorities have been able to link the body parts to people who either took their own lives or were in an accident. If you're wondering why these feet have started popping out of the water all of a sudden, it was explained by a surgeon named Dr. Karan Raj. Dr. Karan said that when a human corpse sinks to the bottom of the ocean, scavengers quickly flock to it. They prefer to tackle the softer parts of our body instead of the tough, grisly bits. Some of the softest parts of us are the soft tissues and ligaments around our ankles, so the scavengers gravitate towards this area. They are able to remove the feet from the body fairly quickly. Dr. Karan also claimed that the reason it's happened more frequently since 2007 is due to the change in sneaker design. Over the last few decades, shoes have become more buoyant, which means they're more lightweight and easier to float. As a result, we could be seeing more severed feet wash up on our shores. So keep your eyes peeled for any random sneakers laying on the beach. Do you have a strange or disturbing incident that you'd like us to cover? Send us an email at veryweirdish@gmail.com and tell us about the weirdest thing you've seen washed up on the shore in the comments below. If you made it to the end of this video, that can only mean one thing. You are seriously into some weird-ish. So go ahead and press that like button, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more weird content just like this.